Hello all, welcome to Pathospash. Today let's go through the topic cellular adaptation. This topic will be done in two parts. In the first part, we will be looking into definition of cellular adaptation, hypertrophy and hyperplasia. In the coming video, we will be looking into atrophy and metaplasia. Before going into the topic proper, let's see how a cell responds to any stress. Whenever a normal cell undergoes stress, the cell tries to adapt to it by undergoing cellular adaptation. If the stimuli or stress is injurious, or if the cell fails to adapt, the cell will undergo cell injury. If the stimuli is mild and transient, the cell will undergo reversible cell injury. But if the stress is severe and persistent, the cell will undergo irreversible cell injury. In both the case of cellular adaptation and reversible cell injury, the cell will revert back to normal on removal of the stress. But if an irreversibly injured cell undergoes persistent injury, the cell will undergo cell death, either by necrosis or by apoptosis. Now let's go in detail about definition of cellular adaptation. Whenever a normal cell undergoes any change in the environment, the cell will undergo certain reversible changes. And these reversible changes could be in the form of change in the size of the cell, or change in the number of the cell, or change in the phenotype of the cell, or change in the metabolic activity of the cell, or change in the function of the cell. This is known as cellular adaptation. Cellular adaptation is mainly of four types. If a normal cell increases in the size of the cell, we call it as hypertrophy. If a normal cell change in the type of the cell, we call it as metaplasia. If a normal cells increase in the number of the cell, we call it as hyperplasia. And if a normal cell decrease in the size of the cell and decrease in the number of the cell, we call it as atrophy. Now let's go in detail about hypertrophy. Whenever a normal cell increases in the size of the cell, we call it as hypertrophy. You can see here this is a normal cell and this cell has undergone increase in the size, and this is known as hypertrophy. So hypertrophy is increase in the size of the tissue or an organ due to increase in the size of the cell. This is the definition of hypertrophy. Now let's see how hypertrophy is caused. On the cell surface, there are three receptors which are mainly involved in hypertrophy. They are growth factor receptor, mechanical sensors, and agonist receptors. Activation of these three receptors causes activation of signal transduction pathways, which in turn cause activation of transcriptional factors. Because of the activation of transcriptional factors, there are three things which happen within the cell. Firstly, they cause increase in growth factor, which act on the growth factor receptors and cause continuous activation. Secondly, they cause induction of embryonal or fetal gene. This activation of embryonal or fetal gene causes increase in protein synthesis, which cause increased production of cell organelles, resulting in the increase in the size of the cell. It improves energy efficacy. Fetal protein requires less ATP when compared to adult protein. This helps the organ to function under stress. It changes contractile protein composition. Embryonal fetal gene activation causes switch in contractile protein from alpha myosin heavy chain to beta myosin heavy chain. This beta myosin heavy chain contracts more slowly but is more energy efficient. It increases the production of atrial natriuretic peptide and brain natriuretic peptide. This decreases the cardiac workload. Also, embryonal and fetal gene activation causes increase in mechanical performance. Activation of transcriptional factor will also cause synthesis of contractile protein, which in turn increases the mechanical performance. Hypertrophy can be physiological or pathological. Example for physiological hypertrophy are hypertrophy of the skeletal muscle, most commonly seen in builders and athletes. The bulging muscle in them is mainly because of hypertrophy. Another example for physiological hypertrophy is hypertrophy of the smooth muscle and mainly seen during pregnancy as growth of the uterus is mainly because of hypertrophy. Example for pathological hypertrophy are hypertrophy of cardiac muscle, which is most commonly seen as left ventricular hypertrophy, which is caused because of hypertension or damaged valve. Another example for pathological hypertrophy is hypertrophy of smooth muscles, and this include hypertrophy of the smooth muscle of the bladder, which is caused due to secondary obstruction, most commonly caused by benign prostatic hyperplasia. Another example for hypertrophy of the smooth muscle is hypertrophy of the muscular layer of the stomach, which is caused because of pyloric stenosis. Now let's go through the topic hyperplasia. Now you can see here this is a normal cell. When this cell is activated or stimulated, it undergoes increased cell proliferation, thereby resulting in increase in number of the cell. But you can see here the size of the cell remains the same as that of the normal cell. This is hyperplasia. So hyperplasia is defined as increase in the size of the organ or a tissue because of increase in the number of cells within an organ or a tissue. Now, how is hyperplasia caused? Hyperplasia is mainly caused because of three things, and they are increased growth factor level, increased growth receptor level, and activation of intracellular signaling. All these three things causes increased production of transcription factor within the cell, which in turn causes increased cellular proliferation. Also, in some of the tissue, there can be stem cell activation, which in turn results in increased cell proliferation. Because of this increased cell proliferation, the number of cells within the tissue increases, thereby resulting in hyperplasia. Hyperplasia can be of two types, and they are physiological hyperplasia and pathological hyperplasia. Physiological hyperplasia can be either because of hormonal stimulation or compensatory hyperplasia. Pathological hyperplasia can be either because of excess hormonal stimulation or because of chronic irritation or injury. Now let's go in detail about physiological hyperplasia. And first example under this include hyperplasia due to hormonal stimulation, which is seen in a gravid uterus during pregnancy, which increases in size to accommodate the growing fetus under the hormonal influence of progesterone. Thus, a gravid uterus during pregnancy increases in size by both hypertrophy and hyperplasia. The second example for physiological hyperplasia include compensatory hyperplasia, which is mainly caused due to loss of functional tissue, which results in increased functional demand. And most common example for this is compensatory hyperplasia of liver post partial hepatectomy, where when a part of a liver is removed by partial hepatectomy, the remaining part of the liver which stays in the body increases in size by hyperplasia to restore the removed part of the liver. This is compensatory hyperplasia. The second example is seen in kidney post unilateral nephrectomy, where due to removal of one kidney, the other kidney which stays in the body increases in size to compensate the function of the removed kidney. Now coming to pathological hyperplasia. As already studied, pathological hyperplasia is basically of two types. That is hyperplasia caused because of excessive hormonal stimulation and hyperplasia caused because of chronic inflammation or irritation. Now, coming to hyperplasia caused because of excessive hormonal stimulation. The first example under this is hyperplasia of prostate, which occurs in males due to exposure to excessive testosterone hormone, thereby resulting in benign prostatic hyperplasia. The second example include hyperplasia of the endometrial layer in the uterus due to imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. So you can see here, this is a normal endometrial lining, and on the other side you can see the endometrial lining has increased in thickness. This is mainly because of imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. Now coming to hyperplasia caused because of chronic inflammation or irritation. So whenever there is chronic long-standing inflammation or cell injury, the cells are activated to undergo increased cellular proliferation, thereby resulting in hyperplasia. Now, pathological hyperplasia, whether it could be because of excessive hormonal stimulation or because of chronic inflammation or irritation, it has the potential to get converted into cancer if it is there for a longer period of time. So, this completes the first part of cellular adaptation, where we have covered hypertrophy and hyperplasia in detail. Do subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon, and do share the video with your friends and colleagues. Thanks for watching.